The fight game is aflame with issues. Loudmouths.
What you got to say about that, Deontay? What you got to say about that, my man?
Foul mouths.
I run New York City. I'm a f***ing pimp.
Guys who were scary. And gals who became too leery. And then there are the ones who never get hit, but really, really deserve it. It's our Fight Sports special. And these are the burning issues. Conor McGregor thinks he's pretty good. Sure, he helped grow the UFC. His pay-per-view buys for his fights are now well over 4.5 million, double even Ronda Rousey's.
What I dreamed into reality. Oh, that looks good.
And he's beaten up a lot of guys. Some brown-nosing commentators forget he hasn't beaten up everyone and say he needs to be put in the same category as living greats like Lionel Messi and Usain Bolt. Whoa, hold up. Let's be honest, this bloke isn't really raking in the dosh because of his talent.
Here he is.
It's because of this kind of nonsense. Conor understands the power of a personal brand. And recently, that brand has become a bit too big for the person behind it. Since the UFC was sold for a staggering $4.2 billion in 2016, Conor has it in his head he's been the architect of the whole phenomenon.
Where's my share? Where's my equity? You want me to stick around? You want me to keep doing what I'm doing? Let's talk, but I want ownership now. I want equal share. I want what I deserve, what I've earned.
That equity would bring his earnings from the millions per fight to tens of millions as a shareholder. Before you get too carried away though, Conor, you helped grow the UFC. As in, you were one of many people who worked really hard to launch a fledgling company. But now it seems when it comes to those people,
I just don't give a
nope, it's all about Conor. He does nothing to hide it either. He's a self-confessed materialist, splurging on Lambos and then big-face rollies. The showier, the better. But remember, mate, the people who set the stage for all your prancing around aren't just in the UFC. They're the generations of athletes the world over in this beautiful thing called sport. You're just one of them. You're not above them. So chill your beans. After the break, we dabble with the dark side and ask, who's the scariest dude that ever stepped into the ring? Who's the scariest fighter ever? Well, how do you define scary? If it's mad, unpredictable fury, then this guy is probably your man. Mike Tyson, who'd sooner bite your ear off than stand toe-to-toe. For a while, though, as the youngest heavyweight champion, Tyson was as quick and mean as they come, and genuinely scary. Until his inherent dumbness caused him to throw it all away. And in the end, he had to drum up publicity with a cliche, the press room punch-up. The problem for all but a handful of fighters is that you can't win them all. Sooner or later, you're going to get hit, and once you do, that scary demeanor stops being scary pretty quick.
One of the greats of all time.
George Foreman is a case in point. Mean and powerful, he looked positively unbeatable in the early 1970s, becoming world champion by stopping Joe Frazier in the second round, winning his first defense in the first round, and then stopping Ken Norton in the second round. Norton was his 40th fight for 40 wins. If only he hadn't headed to the jungle to rumble with Muhammad Ali. After Ali roped that dope, George looked a little less unbeatable. And a decade earlier, you could say the same thing about another scary dude, Sonny Liston. A victim of his upbringing, gangster, thug. They even put his photo in the dictionary next to the word mean. But first by Cassius Clay, and then by Muhammad Ali, Liston was licked good and proper, twice.
Has a cut below the eye, and he's getting hit with all the punches in the book. They might be stopping it. That might be all, ladies and gentlemen. I shook up the world!
Although he won 14 of his remaining 15 fights before dying a sad drug-related death, he was never again a serious contender. Tyson, Foreman, and Liston all prove that winning alone isn't enough to make you scary. You have to look scary to be scary. And so our scariest fighter has to be the beast from the East. Russian Nikolai Valuev, the tallest and the heaviest heavyweight champion of them all. Valuev fought 53 times from 1993 to 2009, losing only twice, both by split decision. He was never knocked down, which is just as well, because the stadium floor would have broke. Valuev stood 7 foot 2 inches and weighed up to 328 pounds. His reach was an incredible 85 inches. When he first won the world title, his opponent, John Ruiz, spotted him a foot, 100 pounds, and 7 inches reach. Ruiz was dumb enough to fight Valuev twice. David Haye had more success, taking the Russian's belt in 2009. Valuev announcing soon after that serious bone and joint problems would prevent him fighting again. He turned to politics and sports administration. But he still looks scary. Really scary. The world knew Ronda Rousey as the unstoppable UFC champion, a wrecking machine, a superstar. But that all changed when she had her lights put out by Holly Holm in 2015. A nightmare that was relived with Amanda Nunes 12 months later. So what went wrong? Well, maybe it's because Ronda went away from her judo roots. She went from being a takedown and submission specialist, perfected through her judo career, to a punch thrower. Nunes was laughing all the way to the belt.
She thinks she's a boxer, you know? He put this thing in her head and make the girl believe in that. I don't know why he did that. She had a great judo. He put some crazy thing about his boxing, and then her career started going down.
He being longtime coach and mentor, Edmond Tarverdyan, who took massive heat for convincing her to change her game. So should Ronda have stuck to the judo? Rousey did punch heck out of 3 girls before she met Holm. Sarah McMahon, Alexis Davis, and Betch Kahea. And she took punches pretty well en route to becoming 12-0. But she hadn't come up against anyone like Holm or Nunes. Both were the first to have a decent reach advantage over Ronda, and both were pure strikers, Nunes particularly devastating. Whatever Ronda tried, those girls were always going to be tough. The problems weren't all in the cage either. Rousey started falling further into the distractions of celebrity, acting in films and standing as pin-up girl for the sport. Although it made her rich, it probably diverted some of the dog-eat-dog focus needed to tear someone's head off in a cage. UFC commentator Joe Rogan couldn't help weighing in on this after the home fight. She's crushing all the competition. She looks like a destroyer. And then the traps. That's something that happens when someone gets so absorbed with this idea that they're special. Rousey was furious with the comment, but Rogan may have had a point. Some fighters thrive on the hype. Rousey, however, might have been better without it. Nunes saw a brighter side to her opponent's fame and fortune.
Oh, she's a millionaire already. Why does she want to keep doing that? You know, keep hurting herself.
Rousey could also look to her roots to explain her woes. Rowdy was a darn good judo player. Her highest achievement was an Olympic bronze medal in 2008. And during her time in that sport, she might have picked up some philosophy. Judo is one of many disciplines to emerge from Japan's deep martial arts history. And the Japanese are known for recognizing the look in a champion's face when they've been beaten, and the illusion of invincibility leaves the eyes. Ronda's eyes seem to be missing the sparkle post-home. And Nunes exploited it. Rousey's aura of invincibility might have stayed intact had she ignored her coach and stuck to the judo script. It's what took her to the top of the MMA world, something no male fighter ever did. That feat, and the millions of dollars she's earned along the way, surely do something to dry the tears. Ronda may have sucked at swinging punches, but there was one dude who did it better than anyone. Do you know who holds the record for the most career knockouts and how many knockouts he delivered? Here's a clue. The staggering number was racked up over a 27-year career, one of the longest in history. The answer after the break, when we also ask, does a great trash talker make a great fighter? It takes courage to step into a ring, knowing the other guy might actually knock you out cold. It took particular madness, however, to go toe-to-toe with Archie Moore. Moore stands as the longest reigning light heavyweight world champion of all time, with one of the longest professional careers in history. From 1935 to 1963. And in that 219-fight career, he knocked his opponents out a record 131 times. After he retired, aged 49, having earned the nickname Ancient Archie, he turned to coaching greats like Muhammad Ali and George Foreman, became an important figure in the fight against racism in America, and even had a successful career as a film and television actor. Impressive much?
I predict that when I meet Joe Frazier, this will be like a good amateur fighting a real professional. This will be like a kid out of the Olympics meeting the fastest heavyweight champion that ever lived. This will be no contest. I just look at
You're not fighting Glory, you're not fighting Oscar Bonavera, you're not fighting Sonny Liston, you fighting Joe Frazier.
Everybody knows that. That's not the point.
That's the point.
No, what's your prediction?
My prediction, the fight wouldn't go the distance.
Oh, it won't
I'll
go the
stop
distance.
it.
Stop me, you.
When it comes to trash talk, there will only ever be one true king. The great Cassius Clay, aka Muhammad Ali. He was the greatest when it came to intimidating his opponents through rhyme and verse. Eloquent, fun, and graceful.
What you got to say about that, Deontay? What you got to say about that, my man?
Whereas these days, well, it can all be a bit of a farce.
Let's go, champ! Let's go, champ!
Put the shoes on and then go.
No shoes.
You can't go.
Take off your shoes.
You can.
Let's go, champ! You got a fight coming up and I got a fight coming up.
Look at this.
So listen, after we handle that, let's handle. That's right. That's it.
Their message can seem a bit confused.
You show up like that, bum, I'ma whip that.
Hey.
I'ma whip that, bum.
Compare that crassness with the originality and humor of Ali.
I said last night I had a dream. When I got to Africa, I had one hell of a rumble. I had to beat Tarzan's behind first for claiming to be the king in the jungle. For this fight, I've wrestled with alligators. I've tussled with a whale. I done handcuffed lightning and put thunder in jail. You know I'm bad. I have murdered a rock. I injured a stone, and I hospitalized a brick. I'm so bad I make medicine sick. I'm so fast, man, I can run through a hurricane and don't get wet. When George Foreman meets me, he'll pay his debt. I can drown a drink of water and kill a dead tree. Wait till you see Muhammad Ali.
Conor McGregor's performance in the octagon certainly flirts with greatness. But in the generations since those beautiful rhymes that flowed from Ali's mouth, trash talk has degraded into, well, trash.
Don't give up what Eddie says. The Irish are back. We've taken back control of New York City. I run New York City. I'm a f***ing pimp. Rocking Gucci mink. And without me, this whole f***ing ship sink.
Some certainly do it better than most. Few mouths are as big as Deontay Bomb Squad Wilder's.
But get what, Don? He said he brought you to the top. But what you gonna do when he gets stopped? Cause I'm about to put this Haitian on permanent vacation. And the new Bomb Squad!
At least hard-hitting Wilder's tongue was backed up by the fists that saw him claim the WBC heavyweight title. Floyd Mayweather Jr. had all the flair in the ring, and he was good at shooting his mouth off. But when his dad stepped up to the podium, well, that was just embarrassing.
I'm the best, I must confess. For all the rest, there's no contest. I will shock your mind, I'm one of a kind. I'm the greatest trainer of all time. With moves and grooves and dance and prance, your fools better recognize who's the man. And I know your fools don't want to fight.
Then there's the man who hit hardest, Vladimir Klitschko. He took a different tact.
There's always a price for things that you're gonna say or gonna do.
Only that earned him the tag of boring.
He may be a clean-living man, he may be an ambassador, he may be whatever, but listen, at the end of the day, he's still a boring person, and he still will get knocked out. Mark them words, knocked out.
So maybe the words spat out before fights do have some effect. Tyson Fury did beat Klitschko, and Fury, well, even when he didn't say anything, he said everything. But trust the great former IBF, WBC, and the ring heavyweight champion, Larry Holmes, from the heyday of sporting trash talk, to put it so succinctly.
If you don't talk good about yourself, nobody else is. Ali had the right to talk good about himself. And a lot of things that he said at the time that he was saying, he backed it up. So long as he was backing what he said up, hey, how you gonna knock him? Ali said he's the greatest, that's all right. He said he's the baddest, that's okay. He said he's the prettiest, that's okay. Because if you don't think good about yourself, then nobody else is.
So let's hear it one more time.
I'll give you one more chance. Who's the greatest? You are. All right.
When the brain decides the body's had enough, ain't no amount of willpower gonna convince it otherwise. And the land of Nod is where you're going. Some granite-jawed warriors have an extraordinary ability to take punishment and override this protective mechanism. Theories go that having a thick neck and shoulders helps ward off unconsciousness. That was true for Evander Holyfield. and Mike Tyson, who could both take big hits. Iron Mike was lucky to find a bow tie that fitted around that neck. But for some, the lights go out far more easily thanks to the dreaded glass jaw syndrome. Like Victor Ortiz, who was reminded the hard way that boxing's first rule is protect yourself at all times, especially around Floyd Mayweather. During their fight in 2011, when Ortiz went up to apologize for a headbutt, Floyd gave Victor's chin a cheap tap, catching him off guard and revealing its brittle tendencies. Vladimir Klitschko has admitted he doesn't have the strongest chin, a weakness discovered in his fight with Corey Sanders in 2003. But the lack of losses on his record thereafter proved Klitschko was good enough at dishing out beatings to not worry about his fragile chin. Australian boxing legend Tony Mundine had one of the most beautiful styles in the business. But all the style in the world means naught if you can be put down with a glancing blow. Some fighters simply take too many beatings, which weakens the chin. Once upon a time, Mark Hunt used his face as a defense mechanism, the hardest head in the game. But the damage done in 20 years of fighting eventually put a crack in the concrete. Melvin Manouf, the first man to send Hunt to Neverland in 2008. It was a similar story for Chuck Liddell and Dan Henderson, both men known for being able to take a cannonball to the jaw. But, well, enough cannonballs will scramble anyone's wiring. Still to come on the burning issue, why do the guys who don't get hit make all the money? Let's not mince words. The reason to fight isn't just to determine the strongest and toughest. There's vast sums of cash to be made. But it's not the fighters who reap all the rewards. After all, we're told those brutes don't have the brains to count into the thousands of dollars, let alone negotiate deals. So instead, it falls to the middlemen, otherwise known as the pesky promoters, who can take up to 30% of a fighter's cut. It's no wonder Floyd Mayweather hung up his gloves, so he too could make money without getting hit.
I was able to lead a sport of boxing with no punishment, still sharp, still smart, and made smart investments.
The trailblazer of boxing promoters, Don King, has left a lasting legacy, and not just with that ridiculous hairstyle. King saw a massive opportunity with Muhammad Ali in the 1970s, making millions off the back of Ali's Rumble in the Jungle with George Foreman and his classic trilogy with Joe Frazier. If nothing else, King sure has a knack for wordplay.
He looked like a black Adonis chiseled in stone, ripped. He's ready. Allow me to introduce to you the heavyweight champion of the world, Frank Bruno.
There was a time you couldn't watch a boxing pre-fight conference without seeing that hair floating up in the background. But so too did King have a knack for being on the wrong end of lawsuits, with world champions Ali, Larry Holmes, and Mike Tyson amongst those who sued him for coercion into contracts, claiming he was robbing them blind. King sure gave promoters a bad rap with some of his antics, and he's not the only one. Bob Arum, who represents stars such as Julio Cesar Chavez, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Manny Pacquiao, has been subject to FBI raids and injunctions by state and gaming commissions. But if anything, promoters are gamblers, and the best ones have shown their aptitude for spotting a winner. Heck, King even backed Donald Trump in the 2016 presidential elections. With an estimated net worth of $150 million US, boxing has been good to King, without him ever throwing a punch, at least in the ring, proving that the world of management and promotion is where the smart money's at. Which is why so many retired boxers are now turning to the world of promotion. Mayweather Jr. now represents his own group of fighters. Ricky the Hitman founded Hatton Productions. Oscar De La Hoya with Golden Boy Promotions. And David Haye began Haymaker Promotions. And sure, some tout themselves as giving back to boxing and helping young fighters avoid the pitfalls set out by their predecessors. But really?
It's about giving the fans what they want to see. A lot more of me. The fans want to see a lot more of me. So that's what we're here. That's what Mayweather Promotions and my team is here to give the fans.